Hi, my name is Nevla Naji. I am a founding member of the New Negroes Film Society. Welcome to our website. I wanted to take this time to talk about value systems in film and how a lot of us have this idea that Black female filmmakers and other marginalized filmmakers are at a huge disadvantage in the film industry. I believe that the idea of whether or not you are at a disadvantage is something that you can choose to internalize or not. And it's all a product of focus and what you're focusing on and what you value in film and what you value in your own work. I really feel like we need to have a clear definition of what success means to us as artists and individuals, and really have a deep understanding of why we feel the way we do and what makes us feel the way we do. A lot of us I've seen as black female artists or marginalized artists, we value our level of success based on what the dominant industry tells us success means. So for a lot of us, that'll mean, how many awards that you've won at Sundance, or how many of your films were accepted into Tribeca, whether or not your film made it onto television, whether or not you received a grant from the Ford Foundation for $100,000, whether or not your film made it into major theaters. A lot of us feel like marginalized artists, Black female artists, are placed at a disadvantage because it's more difficult for us to have those types of opportunities and to take advantage of those types of opportunities. A lot of times we do become the token. I'm not saying that none of us get those. Some of us do, but I'm just saying a lot of us become the token, or we're one of the very, very select few. And there are tons of us who are talented out there that it just doesn't make that much sense. A lot of us feel like we're at an unfair disadvantage because most of these venues, actually all of these venues and institutions have historically and still to this day, they favor white and male filmmakers. I mean, systemically speaking, white and or male filmmakers and other artists do have more access to these sorts of opportunities for a whole host of reasons. Film is a very expensive art form, and being that Black people are disproportionately impoverished, we're not going to have as much access to art forms that are more expensive. So it's a whole host of reasons, but also that these institutions and these festivals and the foundations, all of these things where they're spearheaded by white people, and they're often spearheaded by white men. It's not such a given, but they are favoring their own, and most of them have had very little exposure to works and our stories that are by and about us. Most of the stories, most of the films that they see about Black people are just that. They're about Black people by other white men. So a lot of them, they're not going to be as receptive to our films and our stories. And so we don't have as many opportunities as someone who is like them or who might have a connection with them personally. A lot of us feel like we're at an unfair disadvantage and like we deserve more inclusion in those spaces, and they should be less racist and they should be less sexist and yada yada, and if they don't include us, basically, then we'll never have a shot at being successful filmmakers, and that's not true. Don't get me wrong, having all of these opportunities is great, because I see it as sort of a vehicle or a tool for progression, because a lot of times it means that your film might be reaching a wider audience, which a lot of times that translates into more money and more income for the filmmaker, which is an area where a lot of us have where we struggle. So I see these festivals and these big festivals and institutions as a tool for progression, but I don't we really have to evaluate whether or not we should see these tools as more than that, or as markers of our own success as artists, or where we should start valuing our work based on whether or not we have access to those things. I personally don't think that we should rely on those people to change their minds about us and our work, because when we do that, it reinforces this idea that their opinions matter the most, and that their opinions are the most valued, and that continues to privilege their opinion of our stuff, which means that they continue to be the most important aspect of our career, and they don't have to be. I personally know what my films mean to me, and I know what they will mean to my audience members, and so I don't need to have a panel of old white men telling me that I'm worthy, or christening me and choosing me as the one, and choosing my work as the one. I don't need that, because I feel like it stands for itself. I wouldn't like to base my own worth as an artist based on someone else's perception of me, especially somebody who has been conditioned by society to view me, to perceive me a certain way, or base my own worth as an artist on someone else's journey towards becoming less racist or less sexist, because that's really what it comes down to. Basically, that's why I don't base my worth as an artist, and the worth of my films, on whether or not these huge festivals and foundations approve of my work, or whether or not my work is featured amongst other white artists' work. Because for us as marginalized filmmakers, that's basically what mainstream attention means. It means that your work is going to be a token. It's going to be like, that token amongst a sea of white films. That's not really what success means for me. So for those people who do want mainstream attention and mainstream accolades, I do urge you to really examine why you feel the way you do, and whether or not you really want to value your work based on how many white and middle class consumers feel like they can relate to your work and feel like it's universal enough for them to relate to your work, because that's really what it comes down to on a market scale. My version of success is based on whether or not I'm able to personally create the films that I want to make to my own satisfaction. To me, it's challenging enough to even make a film, and it's challenging enough to all the obstacles you have to go through just to make a film. It's enough just to have a product out there and to say that it is yours. Whether or not a whole bunch of people see it, it doesn't matter. You just do it because you're passionate about it. And I know that a lot of filmmakers tend to think that you have to make a film for a specific audience, or you have to know your audience beforehand. And I don't really follow that rule, because the way I see it, my films come from me, and so my audience will be in some way a reflection of me, and a reflection of myself in some capacity. That could be because of race, gender, personal experiences, the way I think, etc. It could be a combination of all of those things. That's the way I see it. I see that my audience and I will naturally gravitate towards each other, and I don't really worry about the marketability of my film. Your film will always have an audience. You don't really have to worry about that. So I wasn't really worried about the struggle of distribution, because I felt accomplished from just completing my film in and of itself. I knew that after that, because I took a very DIY approach to making my film and to distribution, for a variety of reasons. A lot of that was related to cost, and a lot of that is just because I like having creative control and financial control over my film. I knew that I could do whatever I wanted with it once it was finished. I had a variety of options. I could, if nobody accepted my film, I could just decide to rent out a space and rent out spaces and four-wall it, that's what you call it, and just screen it there. And I've done that before. And other people, other universities and organizations have screened my film too. And you could sell it online, or you could submit it to festivals. There's a whole host of things that you can do for distribution. I don't feel like there's a need or a pressure to distribute it a certain way or to gain approval from a distributor. I really feel like as a martialized filmmaker, you have to make films for your own enjoyment and pleasure. And I feel like you have to make films to some extent for yourself and for your own sense of self-expression. And that is more gratifying than, oh, is this going to be accepted into the latest festival, or is this going to be, screening in front of thousands of people? I don't think that we're at a disadvantage just because we don't have as much access to certain opportunities, because it's up to us how much we value those opportunities, and those opportunities do not have any inherent worth unless we give it worth. I see tons of opportunities for us everywhere. The landscape and industry is quickly changing, and I feel like we just need to continue to hold our own and to value our own and to create opportunities that will be more inclusive to us. It's not really enough to place all of these expectations on old models. It's up to us to create new opportunities. We have to create opportunities for ourselves. The way I see it overall is that if you have an idea and you are passionate about that idea, there's no sense in complaining about all the ways that all the roadblocks, all the potential roadblocks. You're going to get your film made. You have everything you need. A lot of us are more privileged than we think we are. I never really worry about, oh, well, I'm a Black woman, I'm not going to have access to funding. I will find a way to get the film produced. And that's the way it is for a lot of us. For all of us who have created films, we just find a way to do it. For those who don't know, my first feature film was a documentary titled Reflections on Unheard Black Women in Civil Rights. And I never thought that I would make any money off of that film. Someone actually asked me when I was in the process of producing it, are you going to make money off of it? And I said no, because the way I saw it, also the way I was treated at my university, it was a very down low project. I received some support from staff there and from my friends, but I knew that the environment overall was not going to be supportive of that film because of its content, and because the people there were not, most of them were not open-minded enough to even try to understand that sort of perspective that I was taking on, and to understand that my experiences as a Black woman are going to be different than theirs. And so it's going to inform my films. So the way that I perceived myself and my work was completely different because of the environment that I was in. So it also matters what type of environment that you place yourself in. Make sure that you always try to reach out to spaces that are supportive of your work, that value your work, or else you're going to get lost in a sea of people who are like sort of stuck in this mindset and who don't even see you because they're trained not to. And so that's really important, because that shapes your self-concept, and that shapes what opportunities you open yourself up to, because it affects your self-esteem. Anyway, I thought my film was not going to be marketable because it was about Black women and that it would be a hard sell. Lo and behold, now I make money off of this film, and it is a stream of income for me. And it's because it's in the educational market, and it's an educational film as well. And universities contact me, and I screen the film there, and it's wonderful. But I never expected that anything like that would come of a film like mine, because of how I was sort of bred or trained to perceive myself relative to this industry. The reason why my film is in demand is because it's unique. And it's unique because of my perspective. All of the films about civil rights up to now are, or at least most of them about civil rights broadly, are taking on the perspective from like a white director and or a male director. And my film touches on race and gender marginalization. So a director who does not experience marginalization, even if they were to try to create a film about it, they would not be able to get the depth of it because they're not coming from that perspective. They have never experienced it in their life. They can only understand it from an outside perspective, and so it informs the way they shape the film. It informs the way they create it. So there's no film that has been created that is quite like mine. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that once you do create a quality film and you are a Black woman and you do allow your voice to be heard, then that creates a much more dynamic piece. It creates a much more unique piece. It really gives you an edge overall because people are not used to hearing our perspective. So those people who are open-minded, they're going to really want to see your film because they've never seen anything like it before, because our voices are not out there. So a lot of us do get silenced in school, and we're told to wash out our voice and wash out our personal experiences as Black women. But I would say, please keep going. Please don't wash yourself out, regardless of the role you play as a producer, as a DP, as whatever. Don't wash your experiences out, and don't whitewash yourself. Whatever that means to you, because that is you. That is your voice, and that is what makes you an individual. And that can be also what makes your film marketable in the end, even though some people might try to tell you that it's a bad thing to begin with. So I see that and our experiences in this current landscape. I actually see our perspective as artists as an advantage in and of itself. Once you rise above all of the bullshit and you really allow yourself to create with, and express yourself, it's really an advantage. So just keep doing that. The last thing I want to mention is that a lot of marginalized artists also don't have as much access to funding. Or we don't have as much access to other resources to make our work. And I actually found that forces us to be even more creative with our work, because to me, being an artist is not about having everything. It's not about having a whole bunch of money or having the best equipment or having that red camera, or it's not about having a lab full of people to work on your stuff who are fully paid 24/7. It's about gathering whatever resources you need and what you can, and working with that to create an amazing piece. Or a piece that's true to you. Art is about learning. It's about self-expression. It's about creativity. And when you're given everything, and when you're given all of these traditional means of expressing yourself or expressing a concept, then that also limits creativity, because you're already given the answer. Oh, I want somebody who I want one of my characters to fly. Oh, okay. We'll just get we'll get the green screen. We'll get the cranes. We'll get the 20 different crew members with all these different roles. We'll get the dolly. Some people have it like that, and that's fine. And they're making mainstream films, or more likely to make mainstream films. But a lot of us don't. And I just wanted to say that that's fine, because that will then allow you to create a more compelling piece based on the fact that you are communicating the same concept of maybe that person flying a completely different way. You have to get creative with it. You have to think. You have to find a different conduit to express that. So that is the basis of creativity. That's the basis of breaking boundaries artistically. And I don't want people to think that not having a whole bunch of money or funding places you at an automatic disadvantage. Um, Again, it might be more challenging for us to find some of the resources that we need, but that continues to improve for us as time goes on, as the industry expands, as we continue to make our own productions. And you know, I really feel like in the meantime, please try to see it as a creative opportunity. Try to see these challenges as a creative opportunity that some other people might not have a creative edge. I'm not saying this to negate the challenges that we experience. It is definitely more challenging for us to gain certain resources to make our film, and I know that it can be very frustrating. I also know that through those challenges comes something very unique and very beautiful, as long as you stay true to yourself and you just remain committed to making quality work. This is pretty much all I wanted to talk about, and I hope some filmmakers out there gain some insight, some ideas. For those who are not filmmakers, I hope you learned something. And all of this advice could easily be applied to other art forms and other aspects of life. So that's pretty much it. And until next time. All right. Thanks. Peace.